Hi, this is Jed Wonderly with the Utah Sports Report, and we've got a lot to discuss this week. In this episode, we'll be talking a little teeny bit about that Arizona game and a lot of bit about the upcoming game against Oregon. It's the biggest game of the season, so you'll want to stick around for this, and we'll be right back.
And they'll run it, Jordan! Ty Jordan! See you later! Touchdown, Utah!
4 seconds, 3 seconds. Back to Van Dyke, deep three up. And good! It's good!
They just need this to finish their best beam rotation of the year. And look at Ford, says get on your feet.
Alrighty, let's talk briefly about that Arizona game. Glad they got out of there with a win. That's always a bonus, and that's always the number one goal. Very disappointed in a couple of things. First of all, the special teams punt protection, where we gave up our second touchdown off of a block punt this year. Not happy about that. Definitely they need to get that fixed as soon as possible. Preferably our offense could be just good enough to where we never ever need to punt again, or if we do, let Cam do a quick kick or fake that and get a first down. Now, the other thing that kind of irked me a little bit, Noah Sewell did not play his best game by any stretch of the imagination. He had a few plays that he did not play very good on, and the big play that comes to my mind was the first touchdown from Arizona. The Arizona quarterback faked a throw, Noah jumped, and the Arizona quarterback took off. Don't even know if there was an actual receiver that he was faking a throw to, but regardless, Whittingham always talks about doing your 1/11th. Do your responsibility and trust that your teammates are going to do theirs. And when he jumped up to try to block that pass, that supposed pass, he took himself out of that play relative to being able to make a tackle. Quarterback takes off, runs for 43 yards for a touchdown, and it's tied at 7. He had a couple of other plays, but that was the big one that he really messed up on, and so he needed to trust his teammates that they would be there to make a play behind him, whether that was to deflect that pass, make it incomplete, or just stop them after they picked up a first down so that they could try again to stop them from scoring. Now, if you take away those two scores, that would be 13 points because they went for 2 on the punt block touchdown, and so they really only got 6 on us on that time. So if you take away 13 points, that puts them at 16, which is their average scoring. They scored 13 points more than their average against us. 23 points against our defense, and then 6 points because of the special teams thing. But that also included an amazing 57-yard field goal that could have easily been good from 65, maybe 70 yards. I mean, that thing cleared so easily. What a good kick by Arizona. But that said, we had some standout plays on our side of the ball. I think Cole Bishop is fun to watch. He makes a lot of great plays, and I think he's going to have a great career here. I actually, you're going to say you heard it here first. I've been thinking about this a little bit, and I'm going to say it now. And I think that when Nate Ritchie gets back, he'll be missed next season as well because he's on his mission. When he gets back, I think Nate Ritchie and Cole Bishop could end up being like Eric Weddle and Morgan Scalley were when they were safeties together here during the Urban Meyer years, and a little bit during, I think, Whittingham's first year or two. But at any rate, that's great players, and I really love watching Cole Bishop play. A great game for him. I thought Tafua did well. Tafuna played really well as well. And I think Fillinger, even though he didn't grade out really high. I think he had quite a decent game. Lloyd, 4 tackles. That's all Lloyd had, if I remember correctly, and I'm pretty sure I do, because I was surprised when I read that. But he is such a presence, and he's always making his presence felt. It doesn't always show up in the stats. But so there's that. I thought Pledger did really well, stepping in for Tavion Thomas, who was being rested. Supposedly it was precautionary. Hopefully he's pretty much 100% ready to go against Oregon this week. And, Cam was Cam. I thought he did really well. Got a lot more passing yards, 294 passing yards this week, I think, with 177 rushing yards. So solid game on both sides. Not on both sides of the ball, but on, for both phases relative to passing and the running game. And really like some of the things that Utah did relative to Bernard. Mekhi Bernard had some good runs and some 3 good pass plays out of the backfield. And I'm very disappointed with our penalties. Our penalties were just horrific. 8 penalties for 85 yards. Granted, there were a couple that I thought were extremely bad calls. And there was also a couple of penalties that I thought were obvious against Arizona that did not get called. Thankfully, we still won, and again, that's always the number one thing. But Britton Covey had a great long catch, 41-ish yards, and that got called back because of a holding penalty. Anyway, we won. I'm happy about that. Now, let's focus on Oregon. We'll do that right after this.
Sophomore quarterback. Keeping it around the right side to the goal line, leans forward, he's in. Touchdown, Utah. On second down with TJ Pledger at running back. And they'll give it to Pledger, sweeping left, and he finds a hole into the end zone. Touchdown, Utah. TJ Pledger, quick hit on the move into the end zone. Touchdown, Utah. Rising, lobbing it for the end zone. It's caught. Touchdown, Dalton Kincaid. Trying to inch closer to the Pac-12 championship game. Second and goal. TJ Pledger stood up, lunges forward. He's in. Touchdown.
All righty, we are back, and it's time to delve deep into Oregon. So, Oregon has been beating teams, not like with a beatdown kind of a thing, not in a dominant fashion. They've been doing it sometimes where you go, how is Oregon the number 3 ranked team when they're barely beating some of these teams like Cal? They barely beat Cal 24-17, and Cal actually was knocking on the door. They were right at the goal line, and maybe not right at the goal line, but they were within the 10 yards of the end zone. And I believe they had at least 2 chances before time ran out and didn't get in, but they could have tied it up and that could have gone into overtime. Not unlike Stanford, who beat them. And we know how bad Stanford is now. So you look at Oregon and you say, wow, they played a lot of teams pretty close. It was 24-19 for Oregon against Arizona after 3 quarters. But for a 17-0 fourth quarter that made the final score more like what you would expect from a number 3 team, it was it ended up being 41-19, but it was close for most of the game, and that's kind of how they've been. Although last week against Washington State, they played, I think, probably their best game of the season, other than perhaps the game where they beat Ohio State. Now, they ended up, I think that score was 38-24 against Washington State. And Washington State had been playing pretty well. So I'm definitely nervous. If you look at Oregon, they're very, very balanced. Very balanced. They run a little more than they pass. They've got 2,139 passing yards for the season against 2,274 rushing yards. So roughly 4,400 yards of offense, just slightly over that. They average 441.3 yards a game. They are 3 spots higher than us in the offensive rankings overall in all of college football. We average 438 point. Let's see, where is it? 438.1 yards a game. There we go. So, like I said, they're 3 spots ahead of us. Very, very close. Scoring is the same, in terms of being very close. We average 35.7 points a game. They average 35.3 points a game. So, when it comes to stats, we are very, very close. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, we do a little bit better. We're a fair amount ahead of them in terms of the yards per game that we give up, but they actually are better than us in terms of the points per game. So yards per game, we give up 346.9 yards versus 367.9 yards for them. So we're ahead of them by 21 yards a game. Not that that's a big deal, although it might be a difference between being in field goal range or making a touchdown or something. But we give up 23.8 yards per game, points per game, not yards per game, 23.8 points per game, and they give up 22.7 points per game. So they do 1.1 points per game better than us, but throw all that out of the window because none of that matters when we're playing on Saturday. It's all about how do we perform, how do we execute, and how do they perform and execute as well. So when you look at their offense, they have a couple of key players that you need to keep in mind. Watch out for. Defense really needs to watch out for them. You can just watch them. So first of all, they've got a quarterback who is efficient at throwing. He can throw. He's pretty accurate for the most part. He's had some bouts of inaccuracy on occasion, but for the most part, I've seen him a handful of times, and he's been pretty accurate, again, for the most part. He's big. He's a big guy. He's 6'3", 230-ish pounds, and he can run. He had a fantastic touchdown run, very athletic, made a fantastic play to get the touchdown against Washington State. He's run for 551 yards this season. That's quite a bit. And let's see, he averages 5.1 yards a carry. If you're a big Utah football fan, if you watched a lot of Utah football, and you probably are because you're watching this, but if you are, you probably also know that we don't always fare very well against a good dual threat quarterback. So that's one thing that makes me really nervous. The fact that they have a guy who I think's quite a good back in the backfield, and he's not even their first string. Their first string is C.J. Verdell, and he's out for the season. But Travis Dye is a very good running back. He's shifty, he's strong, and he's got 908 yards rushing for the season. So look out for him. And because they've got a very competent running back, it makes the runs from the QB all the harder to defend, because is he going to hand it off to Travis or is he going to keep it? Because they do a lot of the option kind of stuff. And they'll also employ that with regard to the passing game. Now, they aren't as prolific at passing, or at least I should say, and they don't have receivers who are super prolific, but they do have very capable receivers, and receivers that are consistently good, but also some of them are some good deep threats. So, for instance, after watching out for Anthony Brown and after watching out for Travis Dye, the receivers that you need to watch out for are Devin Williams. He's their leading receiver with 349 yards, so not a ton of yards for him, but he averages 15.2 yards per catch. Then, behind him, you have Johnson and Dye, same guy as the running back, Travis Dye. who have a 311 and 302 yards respectively. Now, Devin Williams has, I believe, 2 touchdowns, and Dye has 2, and Johnson has 1. So 5 touchdowns between the 3 of them. Dye also has 12 rushing touchdowns, and he's had, I believe, a 4 rushing touchdown game. So he gets into the end zones. I mean, they are good, they're consistent, they're versatile. And then after you are trying to pay attention to those guys, they have Jalen Redd, who's a speedster and can get behind the defense and make the big play. His long play of the year is 63 yards. He only got 197 yards. They don't go to him a lot, I think partially because he might have had an injury or been kind of hampered by an injury at some point. Or maybe it's just the way the offense is running. But, the kid can flat out fly, and he's not very big, but he is very athletic and can make the big play. So we've got that to worry about. And let's not forget that on defense, our secondary is paper thin. And I'm not talking, construction paper thin. I'm talking tissue paper thin. It is really bad. Now, up front, we are also, on the defensive front, of course, we're starting three freshmen along the defensive line. And as Whittingham has said early in the year, that the 2D tackles aren't quite as big as they will be in a year or two when they've had a little more time in the weight room and such. So that worries me because Oregon always has a good offensive line. And so when you have a rushing attack like that and they're running behind an offensive line going against our defensive line, who isn't kind of our normal selves, although we have had some games where we've played quite well, it does make me a little nervous on that side of the ball. And of course, again, with the dual threat quarterback, which we have a kind of a propensity not to defend that really well, I'm nervous. Then if you let's go to our offense and their defensive side of the ball. I love the way our offense is playing, but it looks like Miley, who's been starting at center the last few games, is going to be out. And he's been calling some great O-line calls, which has been really successful as far as the blocking schemes that they're using to help open up the holes for our running backs and provide good protection for Cam when he's passing and that type of stuff. So if he's not going to be there, it looks like Ford's going to switch back to center, and Bills, who was ready to play last week but didn't because our O-line was doing so well, why change it? Well, now Bills is going to be back to playing left guard, and Ford's going to probably be making the O-line calls. So I can only hope that Ford's learned a little bit from the calls Miley has been making and been getting also coached up this week for calls depending on the kind of alignment the Oregon defense is in, so that we can still kind of have that good performance that our O-line has been having over the last few games. That said, Oregon has a very, very capable defensive line, but they have one guy that stands out. And if you are unfamiliar, if you don't follow college football outside of Utah, then you may not be familiar with the name Kayvon Thibodeau, but that guy is a manster. He is a man among boys, and he was, I believe he was a freshman when we played him in 2019, and he was already a wrecking crew on us then. And he was like 240 pounds. I'm like going, this dude's lanky. He's 6'5". He's 240 pounds. How is he doing so well against us? One, of course, our offensive line had issues and has had issues. But the other thing is, too, he's just an amazing athlete. I think he's up to about 260 now. 6'5", 6'6", 260 pounds. He's super smart. So he's a student of the game, which helps him be able to kind of study the technique of the offensive lineman that he's going against. And they don't ever play him just at right end, strong side or weak side or anything like that. He plays all over the line. He can even play linebacker because of how fast he is. So he is all over the field in terms of where he lines up, and he's also all over the field just because he's that fast. He'll chase you down from behind. He'll make a play like he'll step off the line of scrimmage and kind of fall back into coverage and can make plays that way. I mean, the dude he's projected by a lot of college football experts to be the number 1 pick in the draft this year. So got him. Then we have Noah. Oh, excuse me. I've been calling R. Sewell Noah. R. Sewell is Nephi. Apologies. A little brain wiring cramp there or something. So Nephi's brother is Noah Sewell, who plays on Oregon. And ours, Nephi, is 6 feet, about 225, 230 pounds. I think he's 225. Noah is like 6'2", 6'3", and 260 pounds. And the dude runs probably at least as good as Nephi. He's all over the field as well. And again, they have other very capable linebackers and a great secondary. They've got a guy in the secondary who has 5 interceptions. His name slips my mind. 5 interceptions on the year. The defense prides itself on causing turnovers, which is another thing that our defense hasn't been that great at. So, all of that said, it's a home game. Thankfully, because we're going to need all the help we can get. We need the must to be loud as can be, along with the rest of the fans. I hope all the fans show up, early like we have been the last 2 games. That's been great. Let's get there early and let's be loud. I think that we are going to. I don't think either defense is good enough to hold the offenses as good as they've been so far to low numbers. So I think it'll be more of a shootout than it will be a defensive struggle. I think you might find one team in the 30s and one team in the 20s. And if that's the case, I'm hoping that we're the team in the 30s. I do think it'll be nail-biting, at least for good portions of the game. I hope we don't get blown out like we ended up doing in 2019, where we had a very good team, but Oregon had a few players, some that were stepping up big time and having literally the best game of their career. So I'm going to go with I'm so nervous about this game, and I really think that it's one that we could definitely lose just because I have nightmares. I don't really, but that 2019 game just hasn't gotten out of my head because we were 8-1, and then we got blown out by them in the conference championship game, and how our defense gave up that many points and how our offense didn't hardly score. I know that they're different teams and shouldn't conflate that game with this game, but it still makes me very nervous. But then I look and I see, hey, Stanford beat them. California came really close. Arizona was really close with them going into the fourth quarter. They've been close in a lot of games, and so we're a good team. We're very well coached, and I feel like we should be able to do this. So I'm going to say we're going to win 31. I'm hoping it's 35 or higher. But you know what? Let's say 35 just because I want to. 35 to 31 or maybe 28. Like to hold them to 24 or less, but they average 35.3 points a game. That's the fan in me. That's the fan in me, and I'm sorry that I have to do this, but the realist in me, and I hope the realist in me is wrong as wrong can get. I want to admit that next week. I would be nothing would make me happier than to admit that, boy, was I wrong, and they won. They lost. Because the realist in me is going to say, I think actually Oregon is going to pull it out. And it's going to be because we can't contain their dual threat QB, Anthony Brown. And then because we can't contain him, that's going to also open up other things. And I don't know what the score would be in that situation, but hopefully that is not the case. I would love to see something more like the 2015 version where we won 62-20. That's my dream, and that's what I'm hoping happens. But I will settle for 35-28. Utes. Go Utes. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe. I'd love to hear your comments on your thoughts in the comments section on what you think is going to happen in this game. So leave them here. Game time 5:30 on Saturday. So you guys can put your predictions down there in detail if you want. I'd love that too. And all the way up until game time. And yeah, let's see what happens. Go Utes, and hopefully we see you at Rice Eccles.